Good morning. We're continuing our look at creation and what we can learn from God and about God, from the world that He's created. And not just the world He's created, but the universe He has created. I grew up in southeastern Ohio, out on a 45-acre tree farm, surrounded by other 45-acre farms where there were no city lights. When it was night, it was night. When it got dark, it got dark. How many of you grew up in a place that was kind of like that? You could go out at night and actually see the sky above and not just the reflection of city lights bouncing off the atmosphere back down at you, right? You could actually see through the atmosphere into outer space. Me and one of my best friends in high school, we were super rebellious. We would stay up at all hours of the night. We'd go for walks, 7-8 mile walks. And we just look at the stars, look at fields. It was a little dangerous because we did grow up in the woods. And so you never knew what kind of creatures or people might have been lurking around. But it was amazing to be able to walk out at night and just look up and see the stars. People, for as long as people have been looking at stars, we've been amazed by stars. And it didn't matter if we even knew what they were or how it worked. I'll confess, I have an obsession that I've not ever been able to complete, and I never will, is I kind of want to know everything. I want to understand everything. I want to understand how the earth moves and spins and tilts and revolves. I want to understand how we go around the sun. You learn all kinds of interesting things when you start to dig in deep to things. Like sometimes Neptune is further away than Pluto. And sometimes Pluto is further away. Most of you already know that Pluto is no longer a planet, right? It's a dwarf planet. It got demoted. I want to understand it all, and I know I'll never understand it all. Especially things relating to outer space. It's just so fascinating to me, though, to think about the vastness of the universe. You know that they say that the universe is expanding, that the universe is getting bigger and bigger. And when my wife and I were talking about that, she said, "How does that work?" I don't know. Getting bigger into what? I don't know. All we know are things that used to be closer to us are further away, including our moon. Our moon moves away from Earth 1.5 inches every year. You know how we know that? Because when astronauts were on the moon, they put mirrors on the moon, and we were able to measure light beams off of those mirrors back to Earth, and it keeps getting further and further away. I want to know how gravity works. I don't know how gravity works, but I want to know. They say that time and space are a fabric. You ever heard it referred to as the fabric of time and space? No, well, you have now. That's what they say. And the bigger an object is, it's almost like sitting in a sheet that's been stretched taut, right? And you put a heavy object in it. If it's not very heavy, it doesn't bend the fabric very much. But the bigger the object, the more the fabric of time-space gets bent around that object. And this has been proven to be true by Einstein and by a solar eclipse. Stars we should not be able to see because they're behind the sun during a solar eclipse. We can see them because the light gets bent around the sun. Isn't that crazy? Like a curveball. I want to understand all of it. And everything I just shared is about everything I understand. And don't ask me to explain it any more than that because I can't. That's as deep as my knowledge goes. But as I look at those things, I'm like, this is the glory of God. Right? There's this powerful God who's able to create not just a world, but an entire universe that we still struggle to understand. And it's fascinating. Psalmist says in Psalm 19, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands." Now, the nice thing about being an ancient Israelite is you don't have any city lights. Every night, it's a show. Barring clouds, every single night, there's a show that God puts on in the skies. The Babylonians were really known for looking at the stars. It was probably Babylonians who traveled from the east following a star to where a child was born. They were fascinated by the heavens above, and ancient people would look and say, the glory of God can be seen in the stars above us. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. Have you ever thought about the universe that way? That it is pouring out speech. Night after night, the universe is revealing knowledge. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling to think that the universe is speaking to us. I know that sounds very pagan, but you guys have to forgive me because it's in Psalm 19. Turns out it's not pagan at all. The universe is speaking to us, clamoring for our attention. But are we paying attention? Last week we looked at flowers and how the flowers grow. Remember how the baby flowers grow? Creation pours forth speech. So does the universe. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. It's kind of like a mom who's looking at a child that's done something wrong. You don't need any words. All he needs is a look. Right? Children immediately obey the look of mom. No words are used. No sound is heard. But they're paying attention. They know. Psalm 19 says, pay attention. Look. Look at the stars. Watch how they go. Look at the patterns that are there, and you can count on it. You can count on these things. They're pouring forth knowledge. Yet their voice goes out. They don't use any words, yet their voice goes out into all of the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. And if you study ancient civilization, see, I told you I want to know everything. Every ancient civilization up until present has been fascinated by stars and the sun and the moon. We just have. Now, we're going to go through this again because it's been a few weeks, and you may have forgotten this image I put up a few weeks ago of how ancient people saw the world. This does not look like the world that you know. When I go outside and I look at a star, my mind has already been programmed correctly to understand that stars are millions or billions or trillions of miles away. And if you haven't received any kind of scientific training, you've probably watched Lion King. What are the stars? Burning balls of gas, burning millions of miles away, right? You remember the line. Pumbaa. Our minds have been trained and we know we walk around with this knowledge, but this isn't the knowledge that everyone always walked around with. For an ancient person, the world was considerably different. They believed that there was a firmament, right? This vaulted dome of some sort of solid material that was holding back the waters above and separating it from the waters below. And they believed there were floodgates that would open up and rain would come out from those waters, and that God was seated just above those clouds, and just above that firmament, just above the water. I asked a professor friend of mine, how far away did ancient people believe that firmament to be? It wasn't just Jewish people that believed this. Nearly everyone in the ancient Near East believed something like this. How far away did they think it was? And I got no reply. And I thought, I've stumped her. Either that or she doesn't find the question all that compelling. One or the other. I find it really compelling because, again, I want to know everything. It's a blessing and a curse. I want to know everything. How far away did they think those stars were? If you look at the diagram, you'll see they believed that the sun and the moon and the stars all traversed on the inside of that firmament. It had to be on the inside, because if they were on the outside, you wouldn't see them. So they had to be on the inside. How far away did they think it was? How did they understand the universe around them? And even with their limited understanding, they still came to the same conclusion as us. The amazing creation that God has made. Look at it and stand in awe. Now, it turns out there is an answer to the question I asked about how far away did ancient people think it was. So, because I asked other people, I got no answer, and I asked other people because I got to know. I don't know why I got to know. I just got to know. I'll tell you that in just a second. In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. He just pictures the sun. He personifies the sun as a bridegroom. That's this wedding day, and he's excited. This is the best day ever. It's like a runner that's getting ready to run this race he's been training for all his life, and just goes. Unstoppable. No one's going to keep that man from his wedding, and no one's going to keep that man from running that marathon. He is going to go. So that's the sun, making its way across that firmament. Unstoppable. Rejoicing. Happy as it goes. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. Look at it joyfully go across the sky. You can do that today, by the way. You can go out and you can just don't look at the sun, but you can look toward the sun-ish and watch it go. And no matter how bad your life is or how good your life is, that sun just keeps on going. Like a well-trained runner, unstoppable. Can't stop it. And we've had some pretty cold days this past year. But right now you can go out and you can sit in the sun and you can bake in its warmth. I got to use SPF 300 to do it, but you can do it. And feel the warmth that the sun gives. The psalmist says, this is amazing. This tells me something about the God who made it and how I relate to that God. So do you want to know the answer to the question, how far away did at least some ancient people believe the firmament to be? About 700,000 kilometers, which is about 450,000 miles, give or take. How do we know that? Because the Babylonians decided to write it down for us in their own system of measurements. And we've converted it to our system, and it's about that. That's pretty far, right? 700,000 kilometers, that's a long way. It's not millions of miles or billions of miles or trillions of miles, but it's pretty far away. I wonder how Psalm 19 might have changed if they had seen it the way we see it. I will tell you, I don't think it would have changed a lot. Because they would still walk out and they would still say, the heavens pour forth speech. What kind of God can make all of this so vast? The distances are so vast. It is bigger than they knew. How many of you are familiar with the Voyager? Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Look at that. So many. In the year of our Lord, 1977, actually it's also the year I was born, very important year, NASA sent out 2 spacecraft, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, with the idea to study Jupiter and Saturn. They went out and they found some really, really amazing things they didn't quite expect to see. Volcanoes erupting on moons. Ice volcanoes, ice geysers popping out of moons, circling different planets. They took some images as they went. You guys want to see some of the images? Jupiter and its moon, Io. Io is riddled with volcanoes. This is not a rendered picture. This is an actual picture from Voyager. Actually, last week I used images from Paul, but Paul wasn't able to get this close to Jupiter. Pretty close, but not this close. God made that. God made that. It's amazing. This is inside of our own solar system. Saturn's rings and moons. Here's another picture of just the rings of Saturn. Now, because of the way gravity works, gravity is always drawing everything into itself. So one day those rings will be gone. They're slowly getting pulled in to Saturn. And one day Saturn will be a ringless planet. Divorced. No more ring. All those round objects are moons inside of the ring of Saturn. They've sent out another probe just to study Saturn, and they actually let gravity pull it in and consume it so that it wouldn't contaminate any moons around Saturn. Isn't that crazy? They didn't want to contaminate it with human stuff. The Earth is 93.36 million miles away from the sun. And for sunlight to reach Earth, it takes 8.3 minutes. For the sunlight to reach the Earth. 93.36 million miles. Jupiter, 465 million miles. Now this fluctuates because not all orbits are perfect circles around the sun. Some are more elliptical, so they get closer and further away depending on where they're at. But this is an average. 465 million miles. You may have noticed we're still in our solar system. When you look at the night sky and you see stars, you are not looking at our solar system. You know how you know that? Because they are stars. Stars usually have their own solar systems. Their own star systems. Wonder how far away Saturn is. 886 million miles away, almost 1 billion miles. There's almost as many miles between the sun and Saturn as I have money in my bank account. 886 million miles away. We sent spacecraft into space that traveled 886 million miles. And they're still going. In 1990, they stopped sending images from the Voyager spacecrafts because they wanted to save the energy for scientific data rather than just really cool pictures. But they're still out there. They are 45 years old. Actually, 47. Sorry, I forgot how old I am. 47. I wish I was 45. 47 years ago, we sent out these probes, these satellite spacecraft, and they are still sending information back. Isn't that wild? That's wild. That is how far from Earth the Voyager is. 15.2 billion miles. It travels about 1 billion miles every 3 years. Crazy. It's still going. It's now in interstellar space. It's left the solar system. And it's still transmitting information. Takes forever for the information to get to us, but we're still getting information. Not from 15.2 billion miles away. way before that, because it takes a long time for the information to come to us. We don't know if it's still transmitting or not because of how long it takes to get information. In my notes on my slides, I actually have how long it would take at the speed of light for information from us to reach Voyager. I forget what the number is, but it's a lot longer than you would think. Because we all know speed of light, that's pretty fast. I dare you to go faster. You'll turn into light if you do. Years and years and years. I think it was like 33 years or something. At the speed of light. Remember, I said it takes light from the sun 8.3 minutes to reach us. And it would take 33 years for us to reach there. At the speed of light. These are large numbers. I have another really large number here for you. Ready? That's my car. 240,000 miles. Yeah. 2007 Chrysler Aspen, the one they told me to junk a couple years ago and said, just junk it and get a new car. If you remember that story, and I decided to become a mechanic. Why? Because I have to know everything. It's a curse. 240,000 miles on my car. And if I were to drive my car 240,000 miles, I would have to do that 63,000 times to reach Voyager. 63,000 times at 240,000 miles per time. But it's moving away at 1 billion miles every 3 years. I would never, ever make it. That's how large our universe is. It's vast and it's wonderful. If you want to know more about Voyager, NASA has a website. Just Google search Voyager NASA. They've got videos, way more images. If you want to know more about space, you can look at the James Webb Telescope website. There's so many pictures that you can see. And you might think, well, why would I do that? So you can see more of what God made. You see, the ancient people, they may have thought the world was close, and they were still amazed by it. I think the more we know, the more amazed we become. But I don't know we would have said things much different. I think we would still go out at night, look at the stars, and say, the heavens declare the glory of God. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. The sun gets up like a bridegroom and traverses the sky, and we're all warmed by it. One more image. Actually, got a couple. The pale blue dot. I don't even know if you can see the dot on the big screen. Barely. So NASA did us a favor. They re-rendered this image from Voyager. That is us. That's Earth. You see your house from here? Any idea where Voyager was when it took this picture? You want to guess how far away it was? Is this picture from interstellar space? No. It's from Saturn. From Saturn, they turned Voyager around and took another picture of Earth. And that's us. There we are, doing our thing. 1979, if I remember right. Carl Sagan, I don't know if he was atheist or agnostic, but he said, that's us. That's the pale blue dot. There we are. Psalm 8. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place. What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. So let's just say for a moment the Jewish people of ancient Israel believed the same thing as the Babylonians and the Sumerians, the Mesopotamians they were surrounded by, and they thought the sun, the moon, and the stars, they're about 450,000 miles away. And they say, wow, a God that could put something that far away is still mindful of me, still considers me. Now we look at a universe that's vastly different than the way they understood it. But our thoughts are the same, or mine are. What is mankind? You made all of this. You see that blue pale dot? How are you mindful of little old me? But he is. A God that can create and make all of that unimaginably large, unimaginably understandable, like not understandable. God is vast and he is great and he is bigger than we could ever picture or imagine. And yet he loves us. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, if they only knew, if the psalmist had only known what we know, I think his words would have been the same. And yet they draw this conclusion. Back to Psalm 19. They look at the stars and the heavens and the patterns and the circuits, and they say, God has set everything in this perfect motion. And they say, therefore, we can also conclude that the law of the Lord is also perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. They got this from the stars. If you wonder, how did they come about this knowledge? Because the heavens pour forth speech and reveal knowledge. And they say, if God can control all of that, surely he knows how to control me and how I should be. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshes the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes, like the sun or like the moon. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are righteous. If God can breathe planets, if God can breathe planets, speak, and planets come to be, if God can create gravity and time and make it all related, if God can do that, if God can control a universe of galaxies and solar systems, surely we can trust that God knows what is best for us. He has control over all of this that's going on. Surely he knows the best way to be human. We're going to play a video as our closing song, and then Perry's going to come up. But before we play it, I just want us to consider, if you can, we have spiritual practices. I'll go back to this last slide. We have spiritual practices that the Bible encourages us to do. Most of them we are more aware of, like praying, reading scripture, community, maybe even fasting from time to time. But there is another spiritual discipline that God has given us, and that is to look at the world that he has made. Consider the birds of the air. Consider the flowers of the field. Consider the heavens above. These are also spiritual disciplines. And if God provides for the bird and for the flower and for the butterfly and for an entire universe that is unfathomable, we can trust that he'll provide for us too. We can trust that his ways are the ways for us. Let's watch this video together.
So